the hospital room was too quiet for a child. 7-year-old Ellie sat on the edge of her bed, legs dangling, staring out the rain-streaked window. The machines beside her beeped steadily, measuring a body that was failing, though no one had told her that directly. They didn't have to. Welcome to Saved by Tales. Before we begin this powerful, emotional story of loyalty, courage, and quiet healing, we want to hear from you. Have you ever had an animal walk into your life when you needed them most? Tell us in the comments. And if you believe in the silent strength of animals like this, please like, share, and subscribe. But it wasn't the beeping or the sterile air that made her heart ache that morning. It was the sudden silence in the hallway, the one that always came just before the therapy dog visits. She waited, hands curled tightly around the frayed edge of her hospital blanket. And then, she heard it. Not the usual jingle of tags or soft paws on the tile floor. This was different, heavier, slower, a dog's footsteps, but not just any dog. When he entered the room, Ellie's breath caught. A massive German shepherd, coat flecked with silver, eyes filled with something ancient and knowing. No wag, no bark, just stillness, and a stare that pierced straight through her. Nurses exchanged uncertain glances. That's not one of ours, but Ellie already knew. This dog wasn't here to play fetch. He was here for something else, something deeper. The rain hadn't let up for 3 days. Outside St. Matthew's Pediatric Hospital, puddles mirrored the grey sky, and the wind carried a chill that crept through the cracks of old windows. Inside room 407, 7-year-old Ellie Palmer had stopped counting the raindrops. At first, it had been a game, one for each wish, one for each dream. Now it was just white noise, a sound that filled the silence after doctors left the room with tight lips and 2 soft voices. She wasn't supposed to understand, but Ellie was sharper than anyone gave her credit for. Children who spent half their life in hospitals learned how to listen to what was said and what wasn't. Her leukemia had returned, that much she knew. And this time, things felt different, more tired, more final. Her mother, Denise, tried to hide it behind hopeful smiles and Pinterest quote posters on the wall. "You're so brave," she'd whisper, brushing Ellie's hair back. "Like a little lion. But lions don't lose all their strength when they stand up. Lions don't cry into their pillows at night, so no one hears." Ellie did. And on the morning everything began to change. She wasn't thinking about courage or doctors or even death. She was just thinking how much she missed the feeling of grass under her feet. The therapy dogs were the only thing she looked forward to anymore. Gentle golden retrievers, a goofy boxer named Muffin, even a tiny bug-eyed pug named Winston. But when the nurse entered that morning and said, "We have a visitor for you," it wasn't any of those familiar faces. It was him, a German shepherd, tall and broad-shouldered, fur streaked with silver and charcoal. His eyes were amber, deep, unreadable, and his presence filled the room like thunder before a storm. He didn't trot in, he didn't wag. He walked with the calm weight of someone who had seen things and survived them. Ellie froze, one hand still clutching her coloring book. The dog stopped at the foot of her bed and simply looked at her, not like a normal dog, like a soldier. "Where's his vest?" a nurse whispered behind her. "He doesn't have one," another replied. No one signed him in. But none of that mattered to Ellie. In that moment, their eyes locked, and something shifted. She wasn't afraid. For the first time in weeks, she felt seen, not as a patient, not as a case file, just as a little girl who needed someone strong to lean on. "Hi," she whispered, voice barely above a breath. "Do you have a name?" The dog didn't move, didn't blink, but he stepped forward, one slow paw at a time, and rested his chin gently on the edge of her bed. The nurses stepped back. Ellie reached out, fingers trembling, and touched his fur. It was coarse, warm, real, and suddenly, everything real felt possible again. Outside the room, chaos whispered in corners. Staff searched databases. Security checked entry logs. No one had brought in a dog like him, and yet there he was, sitting quietly, refusing to leave. When the shift ended, and night fell, Denise found him curled beside her daughter's bed, head on his paws. "Is this normal?" she asked the nurse. The nurse could only shake her head. "Nothing about this is normal." The next morning, he was still there, and the day after that, doctors protested. But when Ellie's white blood cell count rose slightly for the first time in days, they hesitated. By the end of the week, no one tried to move him. They called him guardian. Ellie called him Major, but he remained silent, stoic, watching every nurse, listening to every whisper, and only relaxing when Ellie's eyes found his. Then one night, Ellie woke up screaming. Nightmares weren't new, but this one was different. The kind where pain followed her into waking. She cried out, hands clutching her chest. Within seconds the dog leapt up, more like a soldier springing into action than a pet. He bounded off the bed, barking sharp and loud, bringing 2 nurses and her mother in within moments. The vitals were spiking, a reaction. The machine screamed red, but the dog stood between Ellie and the door, barking until a crash cart arrived. It was as if he knew he had warned them in time. The attending physician looked down at the dog afterward and whispered, "That's not instinct, that's training." When morning came, Ellie woke to find her mother's tear-streaked face and the dog's head resting gently across her legs. "You saved me," she whispered, threading her fingers into his fur. He didn't move, didn't bark, but his tail thumped once. Later that day, a retired military nurse visiting another patient stopped dead in the hallway. She stared at the German Shepherd and muttered, "That's a K9. How do you know?" a tech asked. The nurse pointed to a faint tattoo on the dog's inner ear. "Only Special Forces dogs have that mark." The hospital staff stood in stunned silence. "How'd he get here?" someone whispered. No one had an answer, but Ellie, she just smiled. She didn't need one. He was here, and that was enough. The next morning, Ellie stirred to the soft weight of the dog's head on her blanket and the distant hum of a gurney rolling past the hallway. She opened her eyes to see him, still, watchful. He hadn't moved all night. Her hand reached instinctively toward his ear, fingers tracing the faded tattoo the retired nurse had pointed out. "Did you belong to someone?" she whispered. "Or did someone belong to you?" His ear flicked slightly, like a distant memory being shaken awake. Outside the door, Denise argued softly with a hospital administrator. "We need to know who brought that dog in. There are protocols." "I understand," Denise said, voice strained, "but he's helped Ellie more in 3 days than the last 6 months of treatments. He's not certified. There are legal implications." "And what about moral ones?" There was silence, then a sigh. "We'll look the other way for now, but I want a record of everything." Meanwhile, in the hospital library, a young med student named Jonah was scrolling through a database of retired service dogs. The nurse's words had stirred his curiosity. "Tattooed inside the ear. That's a mark of military working dogs." He found a partial match. K9 units decommissioned 5 to 10 years ago. One name repeated across the logs. Echo. Deployed 5 times. 2 confirmed search and rescues. 1 casualty notification, withheld due to classified information. Declared missing 6 years ago, after a failed extraction in a conflict zone. Jonah zoomed in on the grainy photo in the record. The amber eyes, the grey streak along the muzzle, the wide intelligent forehead. It was him. It had to be. Echo hadn't died. He'd vanished. And now somehow, he was here. Back in room 407, Ellie sat propped up on pillows, drawing with crayons. She held up her sketch to the dog. It was crude, childish, but unmistakable. A big German shepherd wearing a superhero cape. "I gave you powers," she said. "Hope that's okay." The dog didn't blink, but his tail gave a soft approving thud. Later that afternoon, Dr. Madison entered the room holding Ellie's newest blood work. She stared at the chart in disbelief. White blood cell count, improving. Fatigue levels, decreasing. Appetite, returning. "How is this possible?" she muttered. "Psychosomatic response to positive emotional stimulation," suggested Jonah, still holding Echo's military file. Dr. Madison raised a brow. "You think a dog's making her better?" "I think," Jonah said slowly. "This isn't just a dog." That night, as rain lashed the windows and thunder rattled the glass, Ellie couldn't sleep. She sat cross-legged in bed, staring at the storm. "Do you hate thunder too?" she asked. Echo lifted his head, eyes narrowing at the sky, as if analyzing its threat level. "No," she smiled. "I figured you'd be brave about it." She leaned forward. "Can I tell you a secret?" He didn't move, but she told him anyway. "I don't think I'm gonna get better. I hear Mom crying when she thinks I'm asleep." Echo shifted, moved closer, placed his massive paw across her blanket. It felt like armor. She leaned her head against his shoulder, and for the first time since her diagnosis, Ellie slept through a storm. The next morning, something changed. A janitor noticed a man standing across the street from the hospital, military stance, hat low, watching her window. When approached, the man vanished behind a construction truck. Security footage later confirmed no ID badge, no entry records. But at 2:13 a.m., cameras caught something else. Echo, sitting by the front entrance, growling softly at the glass, tail rigid, eyes focused. He knew, he remembered, someone from his past was nearby. Jonah reviewed the footage and narrowed his search. The name attached to Echo's original handler, Sergeant David Rourke, presumed came AA 6 years ago, but the military log showed something odd. His death report was sealed, redacted. 2 weeks later, Echo vanished during a convoy ambush. No bodies were recovered. Jonah leaned back, heart pounding. This isn't just a hospital mystery, he whispered. This is a cover-up. That night, Echo didn't sleep. He stood at the door, guarded, watched, and when the shadow passed by the hallway window at 3 a.m., Echo didn't bark. He growled, low, warning. Ellie stirred and whispered, "Is someone there?" He moved between her and the door, a silent sentinel. A ghost from the war that never ended. Outside, the wind howled. Inside, a soldier remembered, and a little girl began to believe in something again. Not in medicine, not in miracles, but in the quiet protection of a friend who never needed words to speak the loudest truth of all. I'm here, and I'm not leaving. The morning brought more than just sunlight. It brought attention. A local journalist, tipped off by a nurse, arrived with a notepad and a camera crew, asking about the dog that healed a dying girl. Denise, ever the protector, tried to fend them off. She's a child. This isn't a story. But Ellie stood beside Echo, one hand resting on his head. He's not just a story, she said, voice calm and clear. He's my best friend. Later, in a locked conference room 3 floors down, Jonah laid out his findings. Echo's original handler, Sergeant Rourke, didn't die in action like the record said. He explained to Dr. Madison and the hospital director, there's a classified mission that went sideways. Only 2 were on it, Rourke and Echo. Rourke disappeared. Echo went missing 2 weeks later. The director frowned. So what are you saying? That this is some kind of government mistake? Jonah shook his head. I think it's worse. I think Echo saw something he wasn't supposed to, and someone wanted him gone. That night, someone broke into the hospital. No alarms, no forced entry. But Echo knew. He was waiting in the hallway outside Ellie's door. The man didn't expect the growl, didn't expect the rush of claws and teeth in the dark. Security arrived too late, but Echo had left his mark. A trail of blood led back to the service exit. The cameras showed only flashes. A blurred figure in black, limping. And Ellie, she slept through it all, safe and warm under the dog's watchful eye. The hospital changed after that. Security was tightened. Echo was no longer just a patient's companion. He was an asset, a mystery wrapped in fur and muscle. Jonah worked day and night, tracing the fragments of Echo's past through encrypted military channels. One email slipped through, from an anonymous source. It read, Project Sentinel was never terminated. They're still looking for the last piece. Echo knows where it is. Attached was a satellite image, a remote cabin deep in the Rockies. Jonah showed Denise, if this is real, Echo didn't come here by accident. He came here because someone's after what he remembers. Denise looked at the girl sleeping peacefully beside the dog. We can't let them find him. Not while he's protecting her. But someone else already had plans. The man who'd fled the hospital was in a warehouse 2 states over, getting stitched up by a medic with shaking hands. She's just a kid, the medic said. Why not walk away? The man lit a cigarette. She's not the mission. The dog is. He exhaled slowly. And the dog dies tomorrow. Back in the hospital, Ellie was getting stronger. She walked 10 steps on her own, ate a full meal, laughed, really laughed, for the first time since her diagnosis. Her mother watched in disbelief, and Echo, he stayed beside her the whole time. No leash, no commands, just loyalty. Jonah made a decision. We need to get him out of here, he said. Take him to the cabin, find out what he's hiding. Dr. Madison protested. That's insane. He's a dog, not a data drive. Jonah held up Echo's file. No, he's a memory vault, and someone wants to erase him. Denise nodded. I'll go with you. They left under cover of darkness. Ellie watched from the back seat, wrapped in blankets. Echo curled at her feet. I don't like leaving, she said. Echo raised his head. She smiled faintly. But I trust you. The road stretched out like a ribbon of fate, winding toward the mountains. Behind them danger followed. Ahead truth waited. And in the middle, between secrets and salvation, sat a little girl and her silent guardian. When they arrived at the cabin, Echo froze, sniffed the air, then walked directly to the back wall. There behind a loose panel was a hidden compartment. Inside, sealed military drive, and a photo. The drive was marked, Sentinel, Rourke, Level Omega. The photo, a man in uniform holding a puppy. The same amber eyes, same ears. Rourke and Echo years ago. Jonah stared. This isn't just about memory, it's about proof. Denise asked softly, proof of what? Jonah turned the photo over. On the back, written in shaky ink, if I disappear, tell them. It wasn't a war, it was a betrayal. Outside, the forest was quiet, too quiet. Then, a single shot rang out. Jonah dove to the floor. Denise pulled Ellie down behind the table. Echo growled low, his body tense, eyes glowing in the firelight. They were no longer just visitors in the woods, they were targets, and Echo had just remembered everything. The bullet lodged itself in the wooden bib of Jonah's head, with a thud that silenced the room. Outside, darkness swallowed everything but the throb of tension. Echo didn't move for 3 seconds, then bolted to the door. Ellie reached out, grabbing his tail. No, she whispered. He paused, then stayed. That moment told Denise everything. This wasn't just a mission for Echo anymore. It was a promise. Jonah grabbed the drive and slammed his laptop open. We need to decrypt this now. If we can upload it and expose what they did to Rourke and Echo, it might stop this. Denise moved to the windows, securing the blinds and scanning the tree line with an old pair of binoculars. Nothing moved, but she knew they were out there, watching. The storm rolled in with fury. Thunder cracked like distant artillery. Inside, Jonah worked. Outside, 2 shadows closed in on the cabin, silent and deliberate. But Echo had already smelled them. One by the back, one by the tree line. He pressed his body against the front door, unmoving, a blockade of fur and fury. Denise crouched beside him, shotgun in hand, relic from her father's hunting days. I hope you're ready, she whispered. Echo blinked once. Ready. The first attacker came through the window, glass exploding inwards. Denise fired once. The man hit the floor hard, groaning but alive. Who are they? Ellie cried, her arms around Echo. Not the government, Jonah said grimly. These are cleaners, black contract, hired to erase records and witnesses. Echo's ears shot up. He turned to the fireplace. The second attacker dropped from the chimney like a ghost. But Echo launched first. Claws hit flesh. Teeth sank in. The man screamed. It was over in seconds. Jonah looked stunned. He didn't kill him. Denise nodded. Echo remembers being used. But he's not like them. He never was. The laptop pinged. Got it, Jonah shouted. This is the real reason they want him. The screen filled with logs, mission details, photos, footage of illegal weapons tests, human experiments, deep in conflict zones, all witnessed by Echo's unit. And Echo, he was the only one who survived. Not by accident, by design. He was trained to remember everything. His memory wasn't just instinct, it was weaponized observation, a living archive, and that archive had now been unlocked. Suddenly, headlights appeared outside, a black SUV, another, then 3 more. They weren't here to talk. Jonah turned to Denise. We need to upload this to a secure server. If they get to us first, it's over. Denise nodded. I'll buy you time. Echo stood beside her. I didn't mean you. But Echo didn't budge. Denise smiled. Of course you didn't. Outside, it was war. Denise took the front. Echo took the flank. Jonah hit upload. Ellie watched through the crack in the closet door, tears streaking down her cheeks. This isn't fair, she whispered. He was good. They made him into something else. But Echo wasn't what they made him. He was what he chose to be. And tonight, he chose to protect. The upload bar hit 95%. Then a grenade rolled through the broken window. Denise saw it too late, but Echo didn't. He leapt. A flash, then silence. When Ellie opened her eyes, the room was full of smoke. The screen showed upload complete. The enemies were gone, scattered by the explosion, fleeing into the woods. Jonah found Denise beneath the overturned table, dazed, bleeding, but alive. And Echo. He lay in the doorway, still, burned, silent. Ellie crawled to him. She buried her face in his neck, shaking. No, 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 no. Jonah dropped beside them, heart sinking. Then a cough. A groan, one eye opened. Echo licked Ellie's hand. Alive, scarred, but alive. 3 weeks later, the footage went global. The story broke across every platform. Illegal experiments, war crimes, the soldier who vanished, and the dog who remembered. Whistleblowers came forward. Names were named. Justice began. And Echo, he stayed with Ellie, not as a patient, not as a weapon, as family. Their story became more than survival. It became a message that loyalty could outlive betrayal, that memory could outlast silence, and that sometimes the most powerful whistleblowers bark.